Today, we are digging into a story that has absolutely sent shockwaves through the car world: the unbelievable financial collapse at Porsche. Now, think about it. This is a brand built on precision, on control, and decades of just rock solid stability. But what's happening here isn't just about one company. This is a massive warning shot for the entire luxury industry. So, how did a company that seemed totally indestructible suddenly find its whole business model shattered? Well, let's get into it. It all really kicked off with this, a completely stunning admission from Porsche's own CEO, Oliver Blume. In a message to his employees, he said, and I quote, "Our business model no longer works in its current form." You have to understand, for a company like Porsche, a brand that obsesses over every single tiny detail, that's not just some casual corporate memo. That is a five-alarm fire. It signals that something has gone profoundly, deeply wrong. And this is the number at the very heart of the crisis: a 99% collapse in operating profit. I mean, it's a figure so dramatic, it honestly looks like a typo. But it is very, very real, and it's the mystery we're here to solve. How does a titan of industry watch its profits basically evaporate overnight? Okay, so first, let's really unpack this 99% collapse. To get your head around the sheer scale of what happened, you've got to look at the hard numbers. Because this wasn't just some minor dip in the road. This was like driving off a financial cliff. The magnitude of this drop is just breathtaking. In only 9 months, Porsche went from an operating profit of over 4 billion euros down to a measly 40 million. That's the kind of collapse you might expect from a risky tech startup, not a company that's been the gold standard for profitability for decades. So how is a collapse like this even possible? To really understand why this is so shocking, we have to take a step back and remember what Porsche even is. We're not talking about just any car company. This is a legend, built on a foundation that seemed completely unbreakable. The story starts way back in 1948 with the very first Porsche 356. It immediately set the tone for intentional engineering and that clean design. But that identity was really cemented in 1964 with the iconic 911, a shape that millions of people can recognize instantly. Then, in 2002, they did something nobody expected. They jumped into the SUV market with the Cayenne and proved they could adapt and totally dominate whole new areas. These were the pillars holding everything up. You had that iconic design language, a reputation for performance that was earned through something like 30,000 racing victories, and this almost fanatical, unwavering customer loyalty. And all of that translated into one thing: consistent, year-after-year financial strength, even when the rest of the industry was struggling. And if you want proof of just how powerful their business model was, look at this number. Porsche was making an estimated 18,000 euros in pure profit for every single car they sold. Now, it's not quite Ferrari-level money, but it's an incredibly solid figure that just underscored how strong and proven this business really was. Okay, so if the business was so strong, how did it all just fall apart? Well, the answer isn't one single mistake. It was a perfect storm, a convergence of massive disruptive forces that all slammed into the company at the exact same time. We can really break this storm down into 3 big pieces. First, a sudden and dramatic collapse in their all-important Chinese market. Second, a shift to electric vehicles that became way more expensive and complicated than anyone planned for. And third, these global economic pressures, like new tariffs, that squeeze their finances at the worst possible moment. Let's start with China. For years, this was one of Porsche's strongest markets, a real cash cow. But in early 2025, the floor just fell out from under them. Deliveries plummeted by a staggering 42%. This wasn't a slowdown. This was the market completely turning on them. And here's a big reason why. Brands like Xiaomi, the phone company, are now making cars like the SU7. And as the tech reviewer MKBHD points out, these cars offer incredible software performance and build quality for a fraction of the price. Suddenly, Chinese buyers started caring more about tech and value than the heritage of a German badge, and Porsche just didn't see it coming. At the very same time, Porsche was having its own struggles with the big shift to electric. Now, they entered the EV game with a lot of confidence with the Taycan, but that early interest started to slow down. Their super ambitious goal of having 80% of sales be electric by 2030? Well, the CEO has now walked that back, bluntly calling it not realistic anymore. The market was just too unpredictable. And the final piece of this perfect storm was this immense financial pressure. Porsche was already pouring billions into upgrading its factories for a new era of electric and hybrid cars. Then, on top of that, new trade tariffs added hundreds of millions in unexpected costs. All of this massive spending hit the books at the exact moment sales started to weaken. It was just a brutal, brutal squeeze. So, with profits totally decimated and its entire strategy in question, where does a company like Porsche go from here? This really feels like a genuine fork in the road, and you can see analysts are totally split on whether this is the start of a long, slow decline or a necessary and really painful recalibration. So how should we look at this? Well, on one hand, the cautious view says these challenges run deep, and that maybe the emotional magic that Porsche built over decades with combustion engines, maybe it just doesn't transfer over to electric cars. But on the other hand, the optimistic view points to a company that has a long history of adapting and making really bold moves. I mean, they've reinvented themselves before, and they might just be doing it again. And we're already seeing hints of what a new strategy might look like. There's a renewed focus on hybrids, which suggests a more measured, less all-in path to electrification. They're also seeing huge demand for special, limited-run performance models, which proves that scarcity is still a powerful tool. All of this suggests they might be getting ready to prioritize brand identity over just chasing huge sales numbers. But this story is much bigger than just one company. What has happened to Porsche feels like a canary in the coal mine for the entire luxury automotive industry. What's becoming crystal clear is that every high-end car maker is facing these exact same questions. Ferrari, Bentley, Mercedes-AMG, they all need massive budgets to develop modern electric platforms, and they are all trying to guess where their customers are heading next. Look, when a company as disciplined as Porsche says its business model is broken, it tells you the entire landscape has fundamentally shifted for everyone. This is the new reality. Just having a cool heritage and a great backstory is not enough anymore. Your brand power isn't guaranteed. The next generation of luxury and performance is going to be defined by cutting-edge technology and levels of investment that are, frankly, tough for even the strongest companies to manage. And that leaves us with this one huge fundamental question, not just for Porsche, but for all of these legacy brands. In a world where technology evolves faster than tradition and what customers want can shift in a single year, what does it even mean to be a luxury performance brand? Porsche is being forced to find an answer right now, and the entire industry is holding its breath to see what they come up with.